Well, hello. We are here with Tim Shrout, an entrepreneur and real estate developer, also the co-founder and legacy board member of CRF Affordable Housing and the Stone Table, and a longtime personal friend of ours as well. We've talked about doing this for a while now, Tim, so I'm glad we're finally sitting here in the room recording this conversation today. But Tim, you were central in the creation of Community Reinvestment Foundation, what's now CRF Affordable Housing, and then what has become the Stone Table, which is the business as mission organization that we run on a day in and day out basis.
Sure.
And another little known, maybe unknown note about you is that you could beat us all in tennis. Is that
On a good day, yeah, when the arthritis isn't flaring up too much.
fair enough? Fair enough. Well, Tim, you have functioned really more kind of in the background at CRF and the Stone Table as a board member, as an advisor. And so we wanted to bring you kind of out in front of the camera for a little bit.
Sure.
I want to kind of pick your brain today. I want to get some wisdom and some insight from you. And so that's what
I don't know about that. I guess we'll see.
yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So I really want to start, I guess, just by getting to know you a little bit. I've always known you as a businessman ever since I've had a relationship with you. You were like the business guy.
Okay.
So when did you know you had a knack for business? When did it click that you might be gifted in this arena?
Gifted, strong word. I don't know. Back in even high school, I always had a yearning to get into business, whatever that meant, right? When I was in 8th or ninth grade, I think it was, I was drawing schematics of a car wash, for example. I was always
Really?
fascinated with, automatic car washes were kind of big back then,
Yeah.
or started back then. And I actually had some drawn up that kind of, I thought, well, this would be a really cool way to do one. And then ended up actually owning car washes
Right.
years later.
Right.
Ran a Burger King as a night manager when I was 17. Funny story there. The first night of my managership, I'm talking to the main general manager, and I see out of the corner of my eye this thing starting to fall off a table. So I reach over just out of instinct and grab it, and it was a tomato slicer.
Oh no.
So all these fingers got sliced as I grabbed that piece of
I
equipment.
don't think I've ever heard that story.
Yeah, so my first night, I ended up in the hospital, getting my fingers stitched.
Wow. That
yeah.
is sacrificial leadership right there.
Exactly. Yeah, kind of a bad start to the fast food profession.
So you really had a knack for business from a young age. I mean, it fascinated you.
I enjoyed business in high school. I was part of the top 50 business students in the state. We did things in college settings and stuff, and different really interesting special projects and stuff that we would get to do outside of the school. Stock market wise, different things wise. So accounting I was always good at. So it just kind of flowed that way. Yeah.
It's funny because I always tell people I'm a recovering accountant, right?
Yeah.
But you have an accounting degree. I have an accounting degree. When I look at you, I don't think, oh, there's an accountant.
Right. And I would agree with that. Most accountants are a little, maybe a little stuffy, but
Not guys you want to hang out with.
But it's like I've told people, accounting is a great base.
Yeah, it is.
Because I know a lot of business people that don't understand accounting, and they really don't understand how to look at their business from an analytical standpoint, right? Whereas at least if you have accounting, you have a clue. You don't have to know all the debits and credits and all that stuff. You just have to understand how to read the pro formas and the financial statements. So.
No, it is a great foundation. So I guess then, as you became more fascinated with business, was there somebody you looked up to, somebody you aspired to be like?
Well, that's an easy one because, I met my current wife when I was still in high school, and we dated for 4 years when she was I think, sophomore when we met. Then got married, and her father, Roy Prock, was who's key to this story. Was someone that I was involved with early on. I was doing inventories at the apartment projects that they owned. I was tagging in, along in meetings of zonings, whatever. So I always looked at Roy as a guy that, hey, this guy really knows what's going on here, and that just fueled the fire of kind of how things unrolled. I had worked for other people. I'd worked for Hunt Paving Company, which built a lot of roads. That was an interesting situation. Worked at a bank, Indiana National Bank, for a while. But I'd say the first person really was probably Roy Prock when it came to me trying to emulate the success that he had achieved.
So then I assume that's part of your journey into real estate development. So, I mean, talk a little bit about that. I mean, how did you end up as a real estate developer?
Well, that's an interesting story. So when I first started with Cloverleaf, as it was called, Dominion Realty, Cloverleaf, kind of synonymous. My first job was going out to the projects and actually doing physical inventory. And then I was doing real estate tax assessment checks and making sure real estate taxes were getting paid. So I had all these little odd jobs because I was still in college. So I was going to college full time, working for them, and then after 3 years, I basically finished college, went to IUPUI and Indiana Central at the time. But I had all these little different kind of strange jobs. And once I got out of college, then I became more involved in the management company, which led me into the real, management of the apartment projects. Well, apartments are interesting animals because they're really exciting when you build them, and they're exciting when you fill them. Then they get really boring because once they get full, most of the time they don't become unfull, right? Unless you really mess something up. So it got a little boring. Other parts of the business that Roy was involved with was the development side. Well, that looked really interesting because you're out buying ground and you're developing projects, whether it's commercial space or it's subdivisions for houses, whatever. So that really caught my attention because it was more exciting.
Yeah, there's an artistic aspect to it.
Exactly. You're creating something completely from scratch instead of, just having apartments that you've got kind of handed to you from the construction side and you're filling them up. So I got really interested in both the construction side of the business and the development side. So I started doing development projects on my own on the side. And one of the first things I did was the car washes. Started the Sparkling Image car wash chain in Indianapolis as a side hobby, so to speak. We ended up with 4 locations. I ended up selling those to a big company out of New York after a few years. They did very well. Then I rolled that into some apartments that I bought on my own and developed on my own.
The car wash was kind of Mike's crew, like, wasn't it kind of on the front end of that?
Yeah, they were right there at it. Yeah, it's kind of during the same time. They had 3 or 4 locations in Indianapolis. There was a very splintered group of people that had car washes.
Now they're on every corner.
Now they're on every corner, literally. And I know Bill Dom real well from that business, and we used to be neighbors actually. But I was fascinated because the car wash business was interesting. It was a daily. I mean, I had this computer. Even when I went to Russia in '94. I had my laptop with me, and you had a system called Car Watch that was hooked up to your car washes. These things can run a couple hundred cars an hour. I mean, they're big operations. And this system would show you everything that was going on.
It's pre-internet, right?
Yeah, basically. But
did you have to put it on one of those old modems that dialed in?
Exactly, and it took forever. If you didn't have a good signal, you had no chance. But you had a situation where you could sit and watch the car counts per hour and your man hours per hour and all that stuff. And here I am over in Russia checking that stuff out because it was really interesting to me, But so that was a fun business. Lasted for a while. Then I got out of that and got more into the development of subdivisions. Yeah. A lot of those things on the side. I had talked to Roy about, hey, let me get involved in the development side. And he's like, there's a lot to learn here, and it'd be easier for me just to do it than to teach you. You can kind of hang around and see how it goes, but you're running the apartments, that's probably enough. So I thought, well, let me just try to do some of this. So I was out doing some of those deals on my own. And the moment of truth came one day when Roy came upstairs. He said, hey, Chuck Loftner's here from the MCL Cafeterias.
Yeah.
And Chuck liked to play in development deals. I must have been bored with restaurants, I guess. I don't know. And he said, he's here. He wants to go look at a piece of property. If you want to go with me and we can kind of see how this is done, I can show you a little bit. He said, that'd be great. I said, sure. So we're walking down the stairs to the office, and Chuck's there. And I said, where's this at, Chuck? And he said, well, it's at the corner of Fairview down on the south side. I said, which corner is it? He said, well, it's that northeast corner of Fairview and State Road 37. I said, really?
I know where this is going.
Yeah. And I said, I've already got that under control. And Roy looks at me and goes, you got what? I said, well, I've already got that under option. I've already got that under control, zoned and everything. And
Yeah.
Roy's like, well, how did that happen? I said, well, I just been doing this stuff on the side, trying to learn it, And he looked at Chuck and he said, well, I guess we don't have to go down there, Chuck. So after that, Roy was like, okay, obviously you've learned what you're doing here. So I ended up getting heavily involved in that business.
I think what's interesting to me though, like my son Austin's getting ready to go to college. He's thinking about studying business, and one of his comments to me was, he's kind of a creative. He's a little bit, he's more artistic, and he's like, Dad, I just don't know if I want to sit in a desk, at a desk in an office all day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what all business is,
No,
right? There's a
it's not.
creative element. You're
Absolutely.
a creative guy too. You're a musician. I've seen the designs you've done for a lot of your houses and things. You've got a real artistic bent,
Right.
and it finds expression, really, doesn't it?
It does.
In business.
Entrepreneurship
Yeah.
of sorts, right?
Yeah.
So there's this old thought that, a business guy is suit and tie.
Yeah.
I never wear suit and ties, as you know. But yeah, it's not that way. It can be that way. I mean, I
Right.
suppose if you're in some big corporation and there's a bunch of, big rules, then maybe that is the pigeonhole you get stuck in. But
Right.
I know a lot of people that treat business as an art, to where you try to create, something that's not been done, or you try to meet a need that hasn't been met.
Yep.
And you get creative with it.
Right.
And I've been involved in several of those things, and that's what keeps you rolling a little bit. But amongst the day job of the apartments and more stable projects.
So you've kind of alluded to it already, but you've done lots of things besides just apartment development. Is there a favorite? Like, is there something you've been involved in from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Like, is there something that, like, you think back on that and you were like, I really like that one?
I would say most everything except for the restaurant business was a joy. The car washes was a real joy because of the creativity of it,
Yeah.
and trying to bring more organization to a business that was really just ma and pa. It was really just kind of a ma and pa thing. So we brought a lot of sophistication to that. A lot of things that are still used by other companies that are copying today.
Yep.
So that was a fun time. The restaurant business kind of came after that. That was difficult. Restaurants are difficult. And there's an old saying that all developers get bored and they build a restaurant and then they lose all the money they made. We didn't quite have that problem, but we certainly got out of it quickly because it's just a different world. The employees are working 80 hours a week in 2 different jobs, and they have very little loyalty to you, it seems.
Yeah.
And the difficulty every night's a new night, right? You're only as good as the last guy that walked out your door as far as your reputation goes. So tough business if you're not living it.
It seems like there's something romantic about this idea of owning a restaurant, right? And I think the reality is probably
There seems to be, but yeah, obviously it was. The romance lasted only about a year or two, and then it was like, wow, why did we do this? So,
Yeah, my wife actually waited tables at your restaurant.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, and we would stop by, after church, and we just stop in to make sure everything was going okay. Well, it's never going okay. Right? There's always people missing.
It's chaos.
Yeah, dishwasher or manager didn't show up or whatever. We'd end up working 3 or 4 hours that day, in our church clothes, not meaning to, but we did. We got tired of it one time, hired a regional manager from Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
Big guy, big high-paid guy. Thought this will take care of it. Huge history, huge expertise. He'll handle the job. Had a massive heart attack in 3 weeks after he fired everybody. He pretty much fired everybody there that meant anything and was replacing them, and didn't drop dead, but he dropped incapacitated with a heart attack. And then I had to go back and hire the manager he fired because I had nothing, right?
So restaurant war stories here.
Yeah, so that was a tough gig. And then we closed it down, released it to the first guy who lasted about a week. And he left the pipes and stuff on in the winter and didn't leave the heat on. So I go by there one day and water's flowing out the front of my building. So we had to fix that. We ended up leasing it then to Loftner's, back on that circle again.
Yeah.
And, they ended up taking it over, and it's been fine.
And now it's a Mexican restaurant.
It's a Mexican restaurant. It's done well for quite some time. So
basically, the moral of the story is: do not go into the restaurant business.
No, the restaurant business is very, very tough.
Unless you're Cunningham, right?
Unless you're Cunningham, then obviously you should go into everyone.
You should go into every,
But I've done restaurants, car washes. I started a laboratory with my brother. He was a PhD at the University of Massachusetts. Created a synthetic cell, for lack of a better word, and we tried to commercialize that with patents and set our own laboratory up. And it still exists today. We just never have gotten total traction.
Yeah.
It's a drug discovery type tool. Spent a lot of money on that project. Still believe to this moment that it's worthy. It just has not gotten the traction we hoped it would. So that, you don't win them all.
Yeah.
We lost that one.
Yeah.
But then we're also doing some new products now and some medical stuff that we think will have a different reaction. Because the synthetic cell we invented changed the way they did things. It didn't replace something that was going on. It actually added a element of variable to the process.
Yes.
Drug discovery guys are very, you'd think the opposite, right? When I got into that business, I thought, hey, they'll jump on anything new because they're looking for drugs as quick as they can get them.
Yeah. They're more like accountants.
Not true.
They're more like accountants.
Very much, very much. Hey, give it to a college, let them prove it, and then if they prove it, then maybe we'll buy it. So that didn't work out well. So now the medical stuff we're doing is replacing existing things that making them better. So the chance to market should be much easier. So we'll see how that goes.
Wow. So you've been involved in quite a few things.
Yep.
So I really want to, I want to get to the CRF story.
Sure.
Because really we've never heard you tell this part of the story. And I want to hear you tell this part of the story, because in the early days, everybody knows what CRF became, right?
Right.
But it really started with kind of an idea, an opportunity that you discovered from your role in the apartment business.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, where did the spark come? Where did the idea come from that ended up becoming what CRF Affordable Housing is today?
Well, our company had done a lot of HUD housing, which is a HUD government programs.
Right.
There's a bunch of different programs, and probably half of our portfolio was HUD based, and the other half is market based. So it was a natural situation that back in the early '90s, maybe even late '80s, but definitely early '90s, HUD came out with a new program called recapitalization.
Right.
They were going to allow you to take projects that were old and decrepit and recapitalize them basically with their
Right.
help to rejuvenate the projects and get another 50 years worth of use out of them as affordable housing. And we happened to know the guy named Dave Smith from Boston that kind of spearheaded this whole program, right?
Yeah.
So he's a guy that dealt with all the people at HUD, all the people at government, and would always suggest these new programs to them. And he had a lot of insight, very brilliant guy. And he got this program going. So Dwayne Shaw and I, who worked for you guys for quite some time, we reached out to him and said, hey, we want to kind of be your Midwest guys. Right? We want to kind of be the guys people come to on this product. And we had several projects that Roy owned that qualified for this program. So we thought, okay, we can do this some on our own stuff. We can do this some for other people. So that's kind of where the very first seed of it actually started, right? So that kind of started the recapitalization part of the program. Well, it's a little complicated how it all rolled into CRF, but Roy was a big missions giver.
Yeah.
Due to the fact we went to Lakeview, Tom Pano was the pastor.
Right.
Tom's
Right.
huge. I know he's going to be part of this program, and
Yeah.
as well he should be, because he was right there at the start of anything to do with missions.
Yep.
So we learned to be missions givers. Roy was a big missions giver. So we looked at this situation and said, hey, let's try to do some recapitalizations. We also talked about, Tom owned a nonprofit.
Yep.
We talked about maybe selling some of Roy's projects to the nonprofit, but we still managed them so that Roy could get kind of a step-up situation there, get some cash unlocked in a project that's hard to sell. And that got a little funky with the HUD rules, honestly. Identity of interest problems. Roy wasn't quite sure he wanted to sell projects to something he didn't have at least a little bit of vision on, right? Which he did with Tom in the nursing home, but he didn't with maybe some other nonprofit somewhere.
Yeah.
So that all kind of led into the concept of, hey, maybe we start our own nonprofit,
Right.
and we capitalized on that. Well, that was going to work out okay, but then by us having our own nonprofit, Roy couldn't be on the board of it, which bothered him again as well, right? Because no control issues.
Sure.
So that led us to, okay, how can we benefit this nonprofit with buying other stuff? Maybe we buy some Glick stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And start this nonprofit situation. In the middle of all that, Roy also had, we did some estate planning, and there's something called a CLAT. It's a charitable lead annuity trust. And if you're a person that gives a lot of money to missions and you have a lot of assets, you can actually give that asset to your heirs, but you can take the income stream, very complicated, and I'll keep it simple. You can take the income stream over a certain number of years by this really drastically complex formula of government and write that off on your taxes, and the income goes to a certain foundation or nonprofit for a certain number of years.
Is that similar to a donor advised fund? Like we
probably close to that, but I think a little more obviously ahead of its time, a little more complicated.
Yeah.
But so there was that opportunity also to do some good estate planning as well. So all that just kind of fed into the fact that we knew we needed a nonprofit for something. If it wasn't for our stuff, maybe we could do some other stuff with it. We were big missions givers anyway, and there was ways to continue that level of missions giving or increase it, as well as do some estate tax planning for Roy as well. And that all kind of blew into starting this company, this nonprofit situation. Had it been a situation where we just controlled it ourselves and managed it ourselves, there would have been no need for an outside, head person to run it. But we couldn't really do it ourselves because of identity of interest issues. So that's where your dad came in.
Yeah.
He had done some work with us on the nursing homes, which was another great field that we were in for a while until the rules and regulations got horrible. And that was winding down because we sold those in '92, and this was just kind of starting up.
Sure.
So we talked to Dave about, hey, come in and be our guy, in CRF or whatever you want to call it. And he was happy to do that. Didn't know much about the apartment business, but I said, hey, you be the guy. We'll help you do what needs to be done, and we'll go out and try to buy some projects and move on down the road. So that's kind of the real birth of how it began. Yeah. And a lot of the things that we thought would occur didn't occur. Okay, we went out and tried to buy a lot of projects. Couldn't buy anything. Hardly.
We had 19 under contract.
Yeah, right. Couldn't hardly buy anything.
No.
So
we only closed one of those.
Yeah.
We had 19 under contract. We closed one.
Right. So that wasn't a very good track record.
No.
We couldn't really do anything with our own product because of the identity of interest issues, even though Roy wasn't on the board of CRF.
Right.
So it was kind of like, where's this thing going to go? Well, then Roy's brother Haskell passed away, and his portfolio of projects, they called us and said, hey, will you guys manage those for us?
Right.
And Roy and Haskell had split years before, and they still talk, but they didn't really mix business too much. But with him gone, we said, hey, here's a good opportunity to pick up several thousand units of projects to at least manage.
Yeah.
And I went to Roy and said, hey, let's bring these into CRF. This is perfect. This will generate more income.
Right.
Make CRF a real deal. Give us a real wherewithal to go out and buy projects and stuff.
Yep.
Long story short, that's the way things ended up. And that was the real birth.
So we really started as a management company,
right.
And then we're able to slowly buy those properties.
You bought those projects off the Proc family and bought some other stuff, developed some stuff along the way. And Dave and you and Dwayne, everyone's done a great job. That's why I've been in the background, because I didn't need to be in the foreground. And it's worked out wonderfully.
Yeah,
so
it's been awesome. It's been really awesome. So I mean, you've told me stories about all these documents and typewriters, and you've got all these, these old documents. But you said something to me one time. You said, I was so fascinated with the possibilities that I almost left what I was doing and went and kind of tackled this. Is that an accurate? Am I remembering that accurately?
Yeah, it is. It's again under Roy's mentorship as my father-in-law, as well as just a business guy.
Yeah.
With Tom Pano, being our pastor at the church there was kind of an inflection point there at a moment in time where, Roy was kind of torn between, do we bring the projects into Dominion and manage them ourselves as a for-profit situation, or do we do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I just kind of told him, I said, hey, here's the deal. These are tough projects. And if you want me to help,
Yeah.
we need to do them through CRF.
Yeah.
If you don't want me to help, do what you want.
Right.
But I won't help. And he took that into consideration, and I think he made the right decision by going to CRF's way.
It's just always interesting when you look backwards through history, right? Like there's all these things that happened. They happened behind the scenes, and there were aspects of the story that until we all kind of started recounting them, we had forgotten or had kind of fallen into into history. And you just realize, I think, how God works through the creativity of His people, through marketplace people, through entrepreneurs, through business ideas, and He kind of orchestrates and uses all of our individual gifts. And so my dad's kind of been on the front end of this for the last 30 years.
Absolutely.
And kind of spearheaded the day-to-day operations.
Yep.
But none of this would have been possible had you not been behind the scenes
doing
what God called you to do.
It may have found another way. You never know. It worked out this way, which is wonderful. And as we've talked before, we don't spend a lot of time talking about history because we all had the same goal of how do we drive more money to missions. Because the concept of missions always needing money, and this gets into the BAM part of it later, but that concept just isn't sustainable,
right?
Because you can't just keep flowing funds out of the United States, businesses to other parts of the world, and that be a real, a real going concern of sorts. So when you've got a company that is missions driven, as we were personally, and you can save taxes, you can do great financial planning, great estate planning. It's been a win-win-win-win in every direction. So no one really cared about the beginning. It was like, hey, we've really come out of this thing correctly. So
So I do want to talk about the missions aspect because we really haven't gotten into that, right? Like, because I guess the driving force of all of this, right? The expression was apartments, development, management, business, right? But the driving force behind all of this was, as you've said, how do we get more money into Great Commission work, into global missions work around the world?
Right.
So where did that, I mean, you've talked a little bit about Roy, about Kim and her family, but where did that missions passion come from? Like, what sparked that?
I mean, I think it was all Tom, from that perspective. And, Tom and Roy had started an Action Now.
Right.
Might have been called Action 2000.
It was Action 2000 back before the turn of the millennium.
Action 2000, the closer we got to 2000, it was like, wow, are we just going to shut this down or what are we going to do? So again, that was Tom reaching out to his members of the church. And I think a lot of that, from a business perspective, you have this desire to see the funds you're giving do something. So Roy, myself, a lot of the people involved in the Action 2000 Action Now movement, they wanted to see the fruits of the labor directly. Okay, they'd all given money through churches, and then that money goes to the church, and you get a nice write-off, and then where that money goes, you kind of don't know. It went to the Assemblies of God, obviously, but you really didn't follow the funds, so to speak. And from a driven business person, high level, maybe it's ego, I don't know what it is, but you want to see those funds go to something, and you want to see the result of it, and you want to know that you did it,
that you made a difference.
Right. You want to that to me is the overriding force of whether it's CRF or Action Now or Action 2000 or whatever that made it successful is the people came in, we had one meeting a year, you made a pledge, the money came in, we got a report from Tom, here's where it went, here's what happened to it, here are pictures of the construction going on. And we didn't take a project that wasn't going to happen immediately. It wasn't like, hey, this is going to happen 5 years from now, check back in later and see if it worked. We knew it was going to happen. By the time we met next year, we had pictures of things saying, hey, this is what your money did. And that was powerful to the business guys that wanted to give big chunks of money directly and not just through a church and then not know kind of where it went.
Yeah, and so CRF kind of became this engine to funnel dollars on a consistent and growing basis into Action Now.
Absolutely.
And really, Action Now is the precursor to the Stone Table.
Absolutely.
It's the Stone Table's kind of taken the baton from Pastor Tom, who
Yep.
we're going to talk to a little bit
Wonderful.
later today, who's 98 years old, remembers more about life than my 48-year-old brain will ever remember.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He's incredible. But really, the Stone Table emerged out of that movement as well. But I mean, we all sat under that leadership of Pastor Tom.
Right.
And I tell people it was like, we slow baked in it, like every week, missionaries in the pulpit,
Yep.
missions conventions, tastes of missions, giant globes in the lobby, the flags of the nations out front. I mean, we saturated in that. And so that was part of
Absolutely.
your experience as well, right?
Well, that's how he got Roy hooked. He took him to Argentina and different places, and Roy came back just energized, like, wow,
Right.
the work that's going on, these different parts of the world that he hadn't even been to before, it just grabbed you. And then Kim and I started taking those same trips with Tom occasionally, and then later on with others and musical missions that went through with Dave and Cheryl Richards.
Right.
Yeah, so you're right. It was just a constant kind of deluge of this is what you should be
It
doing.
was just what Christian people did, right? And you were
Right.
a business guy, you were an entrepreneur. So how do we use those skill sets
Right,
to move this forward?
to the people that really need them, more so than let's build another church in the next city.
Right.
Even though it's got 12 Christian churches or whatever, let's build the 13th. Never understood that concept myself personally. But going to a country that has nothing or has one church per million people,
Right.
or as Action Now did, mainly Bible schools.
Right.
Right. So,
Training pastors.
so let's train the pastors, the natives, to do what needs to be done rather than taking an American, teaching them the language over a period of forever.
Right.
When all their kids and their family take them over there, put them in
Right.
place, pay for all that, so they can do what? Do the same thing a native guy can do in about 10 times faster. Right. So it makes more sense.
So 30 years, I mean, CRF and now the Stone Table, I mean, it's got a 30-year history. I mean, as you look back, is there something that surprised you? Like, is there something you look at and you go, gosh, I wasn't expecting that?
Boy, I don't know that surprise is the word.
Maybe something you're the most proud
Satisfaction
of.
is the word.
Yeah, satisfaction.
Yeah, big satisfaction, sure.
What are you most proud of then, right? Because I think back to the old typewriter documents. I mean, when you were in your 30s, right, and you're just kind of like, well, here's this program. I've got this concept and idea. I mean, maybe we can do something with this. And now to see where it all has gone, like what are you most proud of?
Yeah, it's beginning something from scratch with a concept that you weren't sure was going to work or not. Back then Bethesda was the people we looked up to, right? Bethesda had a huge nursing home organization, and I can remember sitting in those meetings because they were part of the Action Now group.
Yeah.
And Dave Burdine and his crew, and I always looked at Dave and those guys as, wow, if we could ever do a 10th of what these guys are doing, it would be phenomenal, right? And they did great work, and they're still around in some form or fashion now, I'm sure. But to see CRF and the Stone Table from a monetary standpoint, I think as things have worked out, we've at least matched them, if not gone a little bit bigger. I would have never thought that would be the case.
Yeah.
As starting out as a management company with just a few properties, growing that into a property ownership company of I don't know how many units, 2,700.
Yeah, I think at our height we were 2,700.
Yeah, and then to be able to hit the generational sale of the world in 2021.
Yeah.
I just think it's been phenomenal. That's
pretty cool.
We're truly blessed. I mean, every step we've made along the way.
Yeah.
I don't even know that you can find stumbles. I've never really tried to look back at stumbles, but I don't recall many stumbles. We've not bought bad projects. We've not built bad projects. We've come out pretty well in everything we've done, I think. So it's been a really blessed situation.
Well, I think, I just really believe if you keep the things of God in front of you, the things that Jesus said were important, if you keep those things at the front and you keep those things in focus, it doesn't mean you don't go through hard times. It doesn't mean you don't go through difficulties, right? But it does mean that ultimately you feel like the Lord is behind what you're doing because you're really participating in what He's doing.
Well, it's easy to look back, and as you said earlier, we had one project bought out of 19 contracts or whatever. Yeah. It's easy to look back at that and say, "Wow, we just went down the wrong path."
Right.
Why didn't God give us 19 out of 19?
Right.
Could have got started a lot easier.
Yeah.
A lot less angst. But for whatever reason, didn't work out that way. But at the end of the day, 30 years later, it's been an incredible ride.
It has. It really has. So I want to take just a couple minutes before we wrap this up, and I want to pick your brain. I mean, if we've got entrepreneurs and business people watching this in some fashion, some of the things that always intrigue me when I'm talking to a guy like you. You invest in a lot of things. You've started a lot of things. Every time I talk to you, you've put some money into some new idea or some new concept. So I think really
mostly my grandkids now.
Fair enough. That's true. That is true. But how do you decide if a business idea or opportunity is worth pursuing? So if there's an up and coming entrepreneur out there, he's tinkering with an idea, or he's tinkering with an investment idea. How do you decide when it's worth actually pulling the trigger?
Okay, the answer is going to be a little difficult because I've always been kind of a gut guy. Okay,
That's fair.
Just to be frank.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain amount of talent in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if talent's the right word, but characteristic of an entrepreneur that is successful is: do you have a good judge of character? Do you have a good judge of research? Do you have a good judge of an idea and what it can and can't do?
Yeah.
And sometimes, as in my synthetic cell situation, you bite off more than you can chew. Sometimes you don't. So I've won more than I've lost, which is the way you want to keep it.
Right.
Like you say, you will lose some. But I think for me, I really try to keep my eyes on trends. What's going on in the world. How is technology changing things? Like an insurance company that I invested in. Small group of guys, all they needed was $100,000 and some office space, right? Remodel Health.
Yep.
And great group of Christian guys. And we've grown that from a few guys using my office to outgrowing my office.
Right.
Now they've got their own space, and now they're looking to exit out of that probably in the next year or two.
Yep.
And I think it'll be a big exit.
Yeah.
And they've just grown that through technology. It's an insurance business. What's new in insurance? Nothing much. But they came up with a technology platform, kind of like the Progressive with auto. It's kind of like that for healthcare. So again, it sounds like an easy idea, but they've got a very, very proprietary software piece that does a job that no one else can do. So I saw that in those guys. They're smart guys, and it's worked out wonderfully. And again, they're good Christian guys. And I'm not saying you got to be a good Christian guy to be a good business guy. Right. It does help. I mean, it gives me some level of comfort if they're truly good guys.
Yeah.
And most of the deals I've gotten involved with, I don't make that like a litmus test, but it's part of the program, right? Because I know if they're at least, stable family people, have, whether it's Christian religion or AG or whatever, as long as they're committed to a proper religion. It gives me some good feelings that, hey, these are quality individuals and they've got some good moral standards. So
I had a venture capitalist tell me one time, I asked him a similar question, and he said, really for him it was two things. Is the idea good? Like, do I buy into the idea? Is the model right? But then exactly what you're saying, do I believe in the people?
In the person, yeah.
And really for him, both of those things had to be present because he had invested in bad ideas that good people brought him, and he had invested in good ideas that people maybe not that were bad but weren't capable of maybe
performing
at the level that they needed.
And I see that all the time. I get calls constantly, and I got one the other day from another insurance, property casualty insurance kind of a thing, and after 15 minutes on the call, I realized this was not the guy. His idea was fuzzy.
Yeah.
At best, had not been thought through, in my opinion, totally. And him as a person, he was pretty wishy-washy on answers. And I'm like, okay, I can't invest in something like that. And I gave him a list of things I had to have to continue the conversation. I've never heard back. So I think my gut was good because he realized when he got off the phone, I'm not going to get this guy to invest.
Yeah, when you talk about gut, though, I mean, I think there is something to that. But gut actually comes from experience. It comes from wisdom.
Yeah, it's not mystical.
Yeah, it's not some mystical thing, right?
No.
Maybe a little of the Holy Spirit involved in that process as well, but that does a gut response does come from doing the due diligence over
Right.
a long period of time.
Yeah, in your brain, you're ticking off the Rolodex of what makes a good business, right? Is this guy a good business
Right.
driver? Is the idea
Right.
a good business to be in? Is the market a good business for the idea to come to? Is there financing available for it? I mean, there's all kinds of things. Sometimes you just take a flyer. I'm kind of more of a angel investor, early risk than a venture capital guy who's taking risk, but the idea is pretty well baked.
Yeah.
So it's again kind of getting back to that what gets your juices flowing
Yeah.
kind of thing. I enjoy the angel part, and you're gonna miss a lot more on the angel parts
Yeah.
because they may just not work out. But it's still the same process, whichever one you're going through. It's just a matter of how much risk you're willing to take on an idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you talked about, you study trends, you see, you look at the world, you look what's happening in the world. If you were going to talk to some other maybe potential entrepreneurs, what do you see happening out there that you think A, is interesting, and B, maybe could be harnessed for, kingdom work in the world? I mean, is there something out there that is intriguing?
Well,
right
I mean,
now?
I think any business, any profitable business
Yeah.
can be harvested, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's real estate that you're
Right.
moving along with in a small amount of cash flow and then you sell it for a ton of money, or whether it's a high net income producing software company that's just
Right.
making it like crazy with 90% margins. Any of those things, I think, can be used as a tool like we're using with CRF.
Yeah.
It's just a matter if that owner wants to take a piece of that action and put it into a nonprofit. It's a pretty simple process, right? In fact, it's even simpler with some of that stuff. So, so I think as far as I don't think it matters what kind of business it
Sure.
is. It can fit our template of
Yeah.
how we've done things, and of course, taking that further and enticing the countries we go to start their own businesses that we help support, so they're being self-supportive, which is kind of the part I'm sure you'll talk about with
Yeah.
others. But
Yeah.
that's the whole circle. So I don't think there's any barriers to that situation. As far as trends go, software right now is just so hot. The Chat GPT stuff. I don't know if you've paid much attention to that.
Played around with it. It creeped me out.
Well, we've got another company that we are doing things with right now that we're a big part of, and it will utilize Chat GPT, some of those type AI things for it, but it goes a few steps further in the actual help of a business as far as interacting with your accounting system and stuff. So it's kind of I look at the current Chat AI stuff as a user interface more than I do a functional kind of a thing. But that's going to change pretty quickly, probably. So the company that we're working with right now, I'm really encouraging them. In fact, we got a call today to really step it up, because the problem with software is what's great today is worth nothing 2 years from
Isn't
now,
that the truth?
right? I mean, you look at Exact Target here locally.
Yeah.
Those guys made hundreds of millions apiece. This company sold for $2.4 billion, I think it was. I think if that company existed today versus 5-6 years ago when they sold, I'm not sure it'd even be in business.
Wow.
If it was, no one would be paying $2.4 billion for it unless they changed drastically from what they were doing at the time.
So you really have to keep tabs on. I mean, especially nowadays, things are they're
They're
rolling
so quick,
so fast.
And when you hear guys like Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt and all these really brilliant software guys talk about, this is the new internet. I mean, this is as big a deal as the internet was or PC's invention.
Yeah.
That's scary, right? Because now you're sitting there thinking, okay, what do I have going on right now that's going to be obsolete in a year? So, health insurance, the computerization of health insurance, computerization of medical records, all that stuff's huge. So those are kind of the, esoteric, software things that I think are really hot. Real estate's always good. I mean, you're always going to have apartments. You're always going to have hotels. We were in the hotel business too. And all that stuff's always going to have a place, I think. But I would argue we could take any industry out there that someone has an interest in or wants to get involved with missions more, and show them quite quickly how they could benefit from a personal standpoint, mission standpoint, tax standpoint, inheritance standpoint.
So, and we'll kind of wrap this part up here, but what would you say to, I don't know, the 30-year-old Tim or another person that's out there right now that's got this passion for business, this inkling, this gifting for it, for entrepreneurship, and they're a follower of Christ. I mean, how would you encourage them to use those gifts for the kingdom?
Well, number one, as I've told my kids, the number one thing you should do is follow what you love, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't care if it's. I met a guy that was like a financier on Wall Street, hated his job, quit. He was an outdoorsman. He moves out to Colorado. He starts a rafting business, making tons of money.
Loves his life.
Wafting down the White River every day, right? Whitewater Rapids every day. Loves his job, loves his life. You know, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that business guy, you know, in an office would have done that? So number one is I think you got to follow what you really love, and the money and the success and the personal gratitude, whatever lifestyle will come along from that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, taking that concept as a base, and then if you're a missions-oriented person,
Yeah.
you're going to find a way to get that part of it as part of that puzzle
Yeah.
in place as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's something like we've done or something
Yeah.
like we haven't thought about yet.
Absolutely.
Right. So
I'm sure there are ideas out there. There's a next generation of faith-based entrepreneurs that are going to do things that are going to blow our minds.
30 years, you know, from now, you know, if we're both around, you maybe, me maybe not, I don't know. We'll look back and say, you know, we had a really good idea back in the 90s, but boy, those guys in the
guys are
2020s,
blowing it out of the
yeah,
water.
they really smoked us on that deal. So thank goodness.
Absolutely. So, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a personal question.
Sure.
And you can answer it. You don't have to answer it. We can edit it out later.
That's fine.
Whatever. But just to move away from the business conversation, you know, you and your family have been walking through a really difficult season with Kim, with her cancer diagnosis.
Right.
I mean, thought you were going to lose her,
Yep.
and the Lord's grace has sustained her.
Yep.
I guess I'm always interested, if people are open, you know, I want to know, like, because all of us experience suffering, all of us experience difficulty. What have you and your family learned through this time? What is the Lord speaking to you in this time? And maybe what would you say to others who are facing something like that?
Well, this may sound cold, or it may sound a little too well thought out, but it's true. So Kim got diagnosed in March of 2018.
Yeah.
Shocking stage 4 breast
Yeah.
cancer with
Yeah.
no symptoms whatsoever. And she was the lucky winner that one of 4% of the population gets diagnosed that way. So
Wow.
liver 70% gone, lungs, bones, everything, just a mess. And I after we absorbed that for a moment, I let the kids know, let all of our friends know, family know. I told them all. I said, we got 2 days of woe is me. That's it. 2 days. Then I don't want to hear it anymore. Right? It's got to be positive. It's got to be no more tears. We're positive people because why? We believe.
Right.
You either believe or you don't.
Right.
Okay. And I've always found it. We've had this discussion before. I've always
Yeah.
had it interesting that funerals for believers are so sad when we should be rejoicing that believer has gone to a better place. Right.
Yeah.
If we really believe that,
Right.
why are we so sad? Right. And that's what I told my family, and that's what we've lived, is we either trust God will deal with this, we either trust this is his will, or we don't. If we don't, we got bigger problems, right? If we do, what are we worried about?
Right.
And Kim has done a fantastic job
Yeah.
of accepting. Has it been a bed of roses? Not even close. I mean, her chemo was brutal. She had a little reoccurrence last December. Seems to be over that now, as far as we know. But with us, every 3 months is a new scan, and every 3 months is a new problem or not, right? And that's just the way we look at it. And we don't worry about it anymore. We've given it to him long ago, and
Yeah.
what happens happens. So that's the only way you can live. If you don't live that way, I don't know how you survive the day. I don't know how you get up in the morning, because if you're just going to lay there and worry about it,
Yeah.
and not trust, have no faith, you'd be a mess.
Yeah.
So it's that simple with us.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating to me too, because I think you've brought kind of your entrepreneurial bent even to your wife's treatment. I mean,
Yeah.
in talking to you, I'm like, you could probably get your PhD. Like, can you take the medical tests? Like,
Yeah,
I think
I've,
they could probably give you, it could be Dr. Tim Shrout,
Yeah,
right? The
our
oncologist.
our oncologist has been very impressed with the texts that he gets and
Yeah.
the information that I get to him that he hadn't heard yet himself. They're
Right.
busy guys; they can't stay on top of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've treated this as just another segment of our life, and the tracking of all the blood markers and the
Yeah.
tumor markers and the switching of meds and homeopathic type stuff. We research everything.
Yeah.
If it's on the market, we know about it.
Yeah.
And if there's a clinical trial that comes up, we know about it. And that's just the way, to me, it's just another thing to manage.
Yeah.
So we manage.
Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of that. You guys have been an inspiration, I think, in the way you've stepped into this and walked through it with, just keeping your faith in front of you. And I know Kim's done the heavy lifting there.
She's the strongest person I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she has to, live. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
it's not easy for me to sit there and deal with it, but to
Yeah.
be the person that has to
Experience it.
experience it is a totally different world, I'm quite sure. And I don't think any of us can actually
Right.
know how that feels unless we were that person.
Right.
And as close as I am to that person, you can never really put yourself in
Right.
that person's shoes. You can get like right to the doorstep,
Yeah.
but you can't really get there, right?
Right.
So you try to empathize, you try to whatever, but you've not taken that last step. So she gets all the difference. She gets all the praise for her mental strength.
She's a strong lady.
She is.
She's a strong lady.
And she tries to pass that down to the kids. She's doing a great job showing them how to handle adversity.
It's still a lot of fun. Your
Yeah.
wife, she's a lot of fun to be around. So
She's
yeah.
loving the grandkids right now.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. All right. So last question: is there something you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask you? Is there something, I guess, you'd like to leave us with?
I don't think there's anything.
No, it's an okay
honestly.
answer.
No,
Yeah.
I think you did a great job. We covered a lot of ground
Covered
here,
a
a
lot
lot
of
more than I
ground.
expected. So, no, I mean, I think I've shared everything that I can share to help the situation, but I'm always open to being part of someone else's solution.
Yeah. Well, Tim, we're grateful for you, grateful for your friendship that goes back. I mean, your son was the ring bearer in my wedding. You sang in my wedding.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I remember hanging out at your house back before Mandy and I were even married. I mean, you guys have been a part of our lives for a long time, and thank you for seeding the ideas that have made a kingdom impact around the world, and I believe are going to continue to do so for decades to come.
Oh, I think we're just getting started.
we're just
And
getting
again,
started.
you and your dad have just done a phenomenal job. Continue to do a phenomenal job, and I really think that you coming along here in the last, how long's it been?
10 years.
10 years. See, it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
But I think that was a perfect thing because we're moving out of the real estate phase a little bit. I mean, we're still doing some things, but
Yeah.
into the missions part being more of it, which
Yeah.
you're better than David or I will ever be or would ever have been. So it's just another one of those steps that has been the right steps.
Well, that's really why I had you here, was to get that on tape.
I thought
today.
it was. I knew you would milk me until that came out, so I thought I'd just throw that out there now.
Fair enough. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.